Rod, we are back. And I don't know if when we decided to do this project here, if we thought that 2 out of the first 3 games would have been so excruciating to watch.
Oh, man. I know I didn't. I know I didn't.
And,
But, man
what I was gonna say is if if somebody said, "Hey, Sunday night in Denver, the 49ers are gonna lose to the Broncos," I could get behind that if the play was solid, and both teams were absolutely horrible today. So that's what really makes it hurt. But you basically in 2 of the 3 games that the 49ers have lost so far, the defense pretty much balls out. In the first game, they had a couple penalties that really ruined it, but the defense just balls out, and the offense can't do their part and play this Shanahan time of possession football. And really, without that, it's the opposite. Like if they can't play that time of possession football, what they're doing is, in fact, they're leaving the defense out so long. So
right.
it's not that I'm sure Shanahan's like, man, this is absolutely not how I drew it up. The Seattle game is how he drew it up, but 2 out of these 3 games, it really exposes some of the weaknesses on offense, and it comes right smack down to my first point that I wanted to really talk to you about, which is QB play. And everything has been made about Russ, right? They gave the world to get this guy. They signed him to a giant contract. In 3 games so far, he has been a big disappointment for them. Now, some of this is learning a new offense. Some of this is, as you saw, defensively, the Niners were able to go at him, and he didn't have any opportunities to really set his feet and throw the ball downfield. He was Russ when they needed him to be Russ,
Exactly.
which is what matters. But overall, he played the better game. He won the game. But both quarterbacks were really struggling today. And I was hoping that we weren't going to have to lead with Jimmy, but I think we have to lead with Jimmy because if the Niners even get, a B- game from Garoppolo today, I think they probably win pretty handily. There were so many missed opportunities. Debo would have gone untouched on a pass play if he even saw the guy, how wide open he was. He missed Debo on another play where if he throws it out in front of him, he's gone, and he just kind of lofts it up in the air, and Debo has to kind of catch it and fall on his backside out of bounds. There were lots of missed opportunities. I know the Garoppolo apologists will say, "Oh yeah, he didn't have a training camp," and I totally get that. But this guy's a vet. He's like he doesn't really need that kind of those kind of reps that are really sort of meaningless. But man, he had the opportunity on national TV because I know you were paying attention to the national media because when Trey went down last week, so many people went on podcasts and sports shows and said Niners are the better team with Jimmy at quarterback. There were there was stuff about, secret X40, secret player in the locker room who remains anonymous. This is good for the team. He's happy. That means he's going to get the ball. Who and now we're judging on who that is. That stuff is pretty meaningless to us as the Bay Area fans because we've been through this dance. But man, if Jimmy G did not show the national media, the national football audience today, why the 49ers paid so much to get Trey Lance, I don't know what to tell them because he put it all on display today. He showed every little thing that has been driving us nuts for the last few years, and it was all on display. It was like the Jimmy roulette wheel. You had the safety where he steps out of bounds. You had the interception in the fourth quarter, which everybody and when I 49er fans understand this. We knew it was coming. We just didn't know when.
Right.
If you're not a 49er fan, we knew this was coming. We were waiting for it. We were hoping that he got it out of the way early because we knew it was coming. But he put it all on display. This was the Jimmy special of all Jimmy specials, and I just look at this and go, man, we are stuck with this for another another 14 games, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I know you and I are going to what we're going to do, which is talk a lot about it, but we had an opportunity to, to try and turn that over and go in a different way. And unfortunately, Trey Lance got hurt, and we're stuck with Jimmy.
See, I was hoping we wouldn't start here because it's problematic for me
Yeah.
because I am viewed by many as a Jimmy hater, which is just not the case. I would, if you're gonna put a label on me, I would label myself a Jimmy realist.
Yeah.
And I could not have said it better myself. It was all on display. It was all there. Um, and again, we found ourselves in a situation at the end of the game, and I'm honest, to be 100% honest with you, I had no faith that we were going to get the 50 yards or whatever we needed to get a field goal to win that game. I just I just don't have any faith in high leverage situations in Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. For what? Why would I? Why would I? So that was the thing with Trey, was that okay, I understood that when you go to a 22-year-old, there are going to be ups and downs and there are going to be bad performances.
Yeah.
But what you hope is that one, with his athleticism, we could get more than one. We could make more than one play on third down.
Yeah.
That's number one. And then number two, that as the season went on, he could work himself into a place that in high leverage situations, again, he would be able to make plays. If nothing else in this offense, you have to be able to convert on third down because you have to be able to move the change.
They got one. What were they, 1 of 10, something like that tonight?
It was like something like that, 1 of 10. And then that one wasn't until late, that last drive. But we have to be able to move the ball, run the ball, and move the chains and get the time of possession. If we were out, I think it was we were out snapped by, what was it, 18? We can't we can't put our defense in that position. That they're not built for that. They are built to be able to put pressure and get after the quarterback and wreak havoc. They're not a team that's supposed to be out there for 10, 12, 15 plays at a time. They're trying to get guys off. And you don't, if even when they do their job, if the offense is giving the ball right back, that's just not how we're built to play. So it really is frustrating because we've got 14 more games of this, and you would hope that it would get better, but I don't see how that's going to happen. I mean, he has to get better. And I don't know that that's fair to ask him to be. That was the narrative going through this week. It's Kyle's fault. He's oppressed Jimmy, and that's why, if he would just get some freedom, he would be a different player.
So go back to 2017, because that's where he went back to, right?
Right.
For those few games in 2017, I think we all said, "Oh my gosh." Like he's got a little bit of a gunslinger mentality in him, and he's going to make some mistakes, but he's going to hit on some big plays. And so that's what we were teased in 18 or in 17. Then in 18, he goes down immediately and he's gone for the entire season. Comes back in 19. We are told that it's a different version of him. He doesn't have the mobility. Kyle plays it way conservative, which is probably the right way because they go to the Super Bowl and they're within a play or two of winning that game before Kansas City kind of puts it out of reach, and then gets hurt again. and then comes back in 21, and again, like sort of like this conservative style. I don't know if it was the right way that they handled it, but he did show that, he wasn't making those big throws that would give Kyle, the idea that he should open it up. But I get where he is in that, like, that's how he wants to play. He had the opportunity to show that and he didn't. Now, some of this, and we'll get into this a little bit later, some of this is that offensively, these teams are like carbon copies of each other because this offense is basically Shanahan's offense.
Mhm.
And so their defense, the Denver defense, is sharpening themselves going against their own offense, which is basically the 49ers offense. So they were going to know each other very well no matter what. And we should have actually seen this coming a little bit more, I think. Like, I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a high scoring game, but because, once I started reading up, I'm like, oh, like these teams are going to know each other real well. It's going to be close, probably low scoring. I just thought the quarterback play would be a little bit better. But here's the point that I want to make about Trey. There's a moment in this game where Denver's like, oh, all we got to do is sell out against the rush, and they can't do anything.
Right.
They had five down linemen many times, and the Niners are so rush heavy, and they're killing the rush. They're stopping the rush, which means second and third and long. That is the kryptonite for Jimmy Garoppolo, is second or third and long. He wants to sit second and 5, third and 3, run a little play action here. Boom, Kittle. Like, that's how they want to play football. So when Denver decided to sell out, in the back of my mind, I was like, this is what Kyle knew was coming. This is why Trey being able to have the option to run is so necessary in this offense. Now, I know that you know that, but it just like hit me like just like a bolt of lightning. Like, oh my God, like this is why they went after this guy. Because in games like this, when they cannot run the ball, they're having some offensive line issues, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So it's one of my points. Jimmy being Jimmy hurts them more than helps them.
I thought that Collinsworth and the NBC production staff did a great job of highlighting how actually in game Denver was changing and adjusting their fronts to optimize versus the run.
Yeah.
They started with one front and with the and they switched to two linebackers and they brought Keywan down. And they were looking for what they needed to load up versus the run. And like you said, once they dialed that in, it was like we didn't have a counter to get them out of it. Again, I think it's just asking a lot at this point to expect Jimmy to be a downfield thrower consistently, but we have to. I mean, because that's your answer. If a team is going to bring safeties down and sell out versus the run, you need to be able to at least. And he did it once to Ayuk. You just gotta even if you don't plan on completing it, you have to show that you're willing to at least throw it.
Yes.
Because I mean, if you're not gonna be able to run them out of it, which it was clear that we couldn't, you got to throw them out of it or make them pay for doing it. And yeah, I know I have I have a higher opinion and more faith in Kyle than most.
Yeah.
But so
I didn't feel bad for him, but I felt, I was like, okay, he feels handicapped here.
Right.
Because he could dial up something, and if it doesn't work, it could be a big mistake and turnover on the other side, and then you can lose the game that way. Such as calling for the field goal late there when people were calling for the to go for it on fourth down. and Kyle's looking at it as like this game is 7-5 or whatever it was at
Mhm.
that point. Like points are at a minimum. Like we need to just get them where we get them. But I think if he had any sort of confidence in not only Garoppolo but the line, he may have gone because it's more of a Kyle play to go for it than to not go for it. But
Right.
so I set that up because I wanted to bring Shelvin's note in here, which I think is also something that people are going to say. And I guess the question for me, and I'll read Shelvin's note. Shelvin said Jimmy has issues, but he'd rather have him than Sudfeld. Our season is over if Jimmy had left, so meaning we would have Sudfeld and Purdy as the QBs. So the question is, are we happy with the Niners being a 9-8 team, 10-7 team, knowing that there's a small chance of actually winning the Super Bowl with this kind of defense? Um, and I guess you would say, yeah, because anything can happen. We've seen Jimmy go on hot streaks before. I don't have faith in him to produce when it matters, but at the same time, if he's not there, then it's Brock Purdy time. Now, I mean, people keep saying, "Oh, this guy, he has it," and I'm like, he was the last guy picked in the draft. Like that has to mean something. I don't know about throwing a rookie out there who's the last pick in the draft as the solution. So we're kind of stuck with what we have and just sort of hopeful that Jimmy doesn't get hurt because we can be competitive with him. It's just we're going to have games like this where we lose games that we should have clearly won.
Okay, there's a lot there. One, yes. Are we better off with Jimmy than with Nate Sudfeld? Yes. My issue is, as I was sitting there watching the game, it was my thought was what needs to happen is there needs to be an adjustment of expectations, just like when any other QB2 takes over the team. I again, full disclosure, I don't have much faith in Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't with the national media who felt like, oh, the season is actually saved now because Jimmy is there. Nah, I am a lot less a lot less optimistic today than I was 2 weeks ago about the season long prospects.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree with Shelvin that yes, Jimmy Garoppolo is a better quarterback than Nate Sudfeld. Yes, absolutely, 100%. But and also Brock Purdy, however much potential he's shown, has never prepared a week for
Yeah.
a real live game. Brock Purdy has never had a defense actually game plan against him. So, I mean,
Imagine him and Jalen Moore on the field at the same time, both deer in
oh,
headlights. That would have been tough.
oh, it's. I mean, so that I again, but I don't think that even if Jimmy gets hurt, I don't think that that happens. I think that Butker would play, and then they would try to do something else. I can't imagine a scenario where they would, throw Brock Purdy out there
Yeah, yeah,
at
yeah.
this point. I mean, it's just that would be that would be so counterproductive to his development. And it's basically like waving a white flag. I mean,
Sure.
you're much better off bringing in somebody like you know a McCown, one of the McCown brothers, or somebody who's actually
How old's
started
Jeff
games in the league.
how old's Jeff Garcia these days?
I mean,
I
yeah,
know I know he's buff right now. He's
yeah,
still buff.
yeah. It would be, the usual suspects would be a better option than Brock Purdy. But this is what it is, and we hope. I wanted, I was trying to be as optimistic as everybody else with, Jimmy turning over a new leaf. And I just don't think, what I've said all week as a pushback is that, it's not like we're talking about with the conservative um Jimmy place, game plan that everyone's talking about, that he's been like Alex Smith, where you say what you want about Alex, and I said a lot about Alex,
Oh yeah.
about him not risking the ball and whatnot, but he did not turn the ball over. He wasn't gonna risk the ball, but you knew with Alex you were gonna get those same 20 to 24 touchdowns you get from Jimmy. But Alex, you were gonna get 5 or 6 picks, maybe.
Yeah.
He wasn't in, and Jimmy is like double that.
Yeah.
So to think that if if he can't get to 2.5 or 3 to 1 intercept touchdown to interception ratio in a conservative environment, if we allow him to be gunslinger, what makes you think that the turnovers aren't just going to blow up? Which again, with the way Kyle wants to play, he'd rather just hand it off 3 times and punt rather
Right.
than to be throwing picks and pick sixes. Um, so yeah, I just believe this is what it's going to be. We're going to have to ride the defense and hope we can get some kind of production. That Mitchell and you know TDP come back and are able to give us something, and Mason develops that, because I think that Collinsworth was on point, that they're not giving Wilson 25-30 carries because they just don't think, Kyle just doesn't think that he can hold up. And
Yeah.
he's probably right. He's not a bell cow. So we're going to have to hope that these guys, you know, Marlon Mack was good once. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he can catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, so it looks like that's what the plan is. They got they got ready back, and it looks like they're just gonna, you know, just throw bodies at it.
Well, I guess the one thing I want to say about, or I want to ask you about Jimmy, and we'll end the Jimmy thing because there's more than
Yeah,
Jimmy just to
much
talk
more.
about. I know Jimmy's the easy thing to kind of hang on to because we're used to bagging on Jimmy because
Yeah.
he's the guy, he's the quarterback. That's kind of what you do. But what is it about? Because I want to go back to something that you said, which is when the other team is selling out against the run. And I even wrote this in our game chat. I was like, okay, this should mean they may be open to a little bit of play action and a little bit of creativity, but that was not the case because what also happened is they were having so much trouble blocking. And this goes back to something that we had talked about really early in the season as maybe the thing that we were worried about most with the team was their ability to pass block. Burford had a couple of holding penalties. McGlinchey had a hold, then gave up a sack
Mm-hmm.
when they needed something. And then when Trent goes down, I mentioned Jalen Moore. They quickly pulled him out. Colton McKivitz came in, but that was like the Denver Broncos defensive line and the defensive coordinator was like, man, like just give us more raw meat. They were salivating at the opportunity to go after Jimmy. So if they're selling out on the run and the Niners can't pass block to save their life at this point, I'm trying to think, I'm trying to think of what they could have done offensively to maybe open up something because what we know is that Jimmy is unwilling to go to more than maybe two or three receivers. Like he's unwilling to sit there, and now he can't sit there to even think about throwing deep to make these guys pay for their overly aggressive play. It, like, again, this goes back to me being kind of sad for Shanahan. Like he could have, I don't know, I'm not even sure what he could have dialed up for them to hit a home run with. They had that one play on the sideline with, of all people, the fullback
Mm-hmm.
check, which was a great
That,
play.
that and it was a great throw too.
Great play, great throw. He had an out to Jennings on the sideline, which was another great throw. But it seemed like those were his first reads. He was very confident because he knew that was where the ball was going to go. But man, if he didn't have his first, like he was dying to get that ball out so quickly. To your point, not allowing anything to develop, and that just played into Denver's hands. I'm not sure how to coach. Like, what would a coach say to Jimmy in that moment? Like, step up or use your feet to kind of get another second so something opens up. But that's also not Jimmy's game. So I don't know. It seemed like they were kind of screwed no matter what there.
I'm gonna be cheeky. What he can clearly do is go to the sprint out game. Oh, he can't. Oh well. Sprint right, Jimmy. Go deep. Nah.
He
So
tried to sprint right and he got sacked late, right, the last drive right before
oh my
Wilson
god, it's
fumbled.
like he's in quicksand.
I don't know.
It's
I know. I don't imagine he's that bad of an athlete, but he does have really, really slow feet. Because he couldn't get out of there at all, and it was like I said, it's just like ripe for the pickings, right? Like everything. The Broncos defensive line was like they were like licking their chops, and
legitimately
Shanahan was like, "What am I gonna do?"
Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory are monsters. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they were just jags out there coming at them. Those dudes are good, and when when they can just pin their ears back and not have to worry about them running the ball, they're a problem. They're a problem for anybody. But when it's like Colton McKivitz, that's a problem. That's a problem. So it's going to be really interesting to what we know about Trent from last season is that he will play even when he probably shouldn't. So I'm not, if there's probably it would probably his ankle would probably have to be broken for him not to try to go. But the question is, I mean, kind of like it was in the NFC Championship game last year, where now, well, after the season, he freely admitted he probably shouldn't have played. He probably did us more harm than good being out there, so compromised. But that he's that dude. So if he can't play, that just, I mean, we are really, I mean, that's a problem. That's a real big problem. He is a big part of what it is that we're, you know, able to get done on, being able to not really have to worry about that left side. It gives Kyle some flexibility in other spots, so
Yeah.
he can help over there with McClinchy and in other places to try to, shore up other things because he knows that the left side is on lock. Without that, we're vulnerable, really vulnerable.
The I guess the explanation, let's call it an explanation, but Jimmy's explanation tonight was he needs to get himself in better game shape, and he needs to get just more reps with his guys. Like that's the explanation of why he doesn't think he played well, which, again, like I get it, but also the reason why he was so valuable is because he didn't really need that much time to get acclimated with this team. So, I hope so. I hope that more reps, more practice, whatever it is, team dinners, hanging out with the team, going, whatever it is. I hope that they figure it out and that they play better because that's what we're here for. We want to
Yeah,
watch the team is good. Like they're a good football team. They're just not excellent everywhere right now. And if you're not excellent in the QB1 slot, then you're probably not going to be one of the best teams.
no, it's in today's game. It's today, notwithstanding, it's really hard to ride a defense. And to be, this is my team and I love them, but let's be honest, and we're going to be completely honest, and we're not. This defense is good, but it's not like Baltimore Ravens, Chicago Bears good. I mean, it's not.
And you can't even play that way anymore.
No,
The defense is
exactly.
so handicapped these days.
Exactly. I mean, that again, it's just a completely different game.
Yeah,
There again, I just don't think that we will ever see the way the rules are set up that we'll ever see a dominant defense like that carry a average offense
sure,
to a championship. It's
sure.
just the rule set is just not. The game is just not set up that way. So our defense is about as good as anybody's is in the league, and it's not good enough to do that. We are going to have to get something out of our offense, and more than just something. I mean, we need. I don't think we're going to be able to put the team on Debo's back again. I just think that we need to be a more effective pass offense, which will help the running game. I think it's a symbiotic thing. It's
Hmm.
not gonna be just one thing. Oh, we can just get this one thing going. I just don't think the league is set up that way where you can just ride one thing because the
Right.
defenses are too good to, they can take away that one thing if that's all you can do. We saw that tonight. We started off running it really well, and they just adjusted and adjusted, and we couldn't adjust to their adjustments. So
Absolutely.
that's going to be our challenge. It's going to be Kyle's challenge as we move forward, is to try to figure out a way to extract more out of the passing game. And I don't know whatever it's going to take to make Jimmy comfortable. Um, because where he is comfortable now, it's like the whole world knows the inside the hashes between 10 to 15 yards is where Jimmy feels the most comfortable, and he wants to. I don't know if it's him or the media or if it's a combination of both, but they seem to be really fixated on this hot potato, getting the ball out in 2 seconds, or which is, if I'm a DB and I know he's trying to get the ball out, and I know that he likes to throw it over the middle, all I got to do is sit. If I just sit on those routes, I don't have to cover for that long. 2 seconds for a DB is not that long.
Yeah.
You know, if I know that this guy, if I can just go 1001, 1002, it's going to be ball out. If I can just cover for that long, you know, I'm good. I'm in
Yeah.
good shape. So, and that's what our offense is right now. Um, he had a he had a I've often said that, in addition to throwing deep, if we could just expand the field a little more. But again, tonight, that pass to Jennings, while nice, when Jimmy throws it outside the numbers, boy, it's just like a pick six waiting to happen. That ball just kind of floats and it floats. And if the DB is like tonight, that was a great pass and a great catch by Jennings. But if that DB is sitting on that route, he's gonna house that. You
Hmm.
know, it's just he just doesn't have consistently the kind of arm strength to to make those throws. But I see the prompt on the screen. Yes, the defense is good, man. The
In
defense is
in
good.
in 3 games, the defense has given up 3 offensive touchdowns. One of them was the broken play to Pettis in the first game,
Mhm.
and in this game, they gave up 1 touchdown in the one drive where Russ looked like Russ. I have a question about Russ looking like Russ. I made a comparison, like a pop culture comparison, but there's a movie called Major League Two, and if people remember Major League One, Charlie Sheen plays the Wild Thing, Ricky Vaughn, and he just throws 102 miles an hour, fastball after fastball after fastball, and then he becomes a little bit famous and he starts to change his pitching repertoire. He starts to throw breaking balls and he's starting to wear suits. and he's getting hammered all over the place, and they're just killing him. And I was like, where is the killer Russ, who is 17-4 against us in his career? Because the guy that I was watching was a poor man's Geno Smith. That was Gus Wilson. That wasn't Russ Wilson, right?
Absolutely. And Collinsworth alluded to it, that we kind of saw the same thing with Rodgers when they when they the year, well, I think it was at 17 when they decided in 18 to draft Jordan Love, that they were trying to, LaFleur was trying to make him put more of a pocket player. And I guess, but when you have guys like that who are great athletes, I just think that you need to let them, you need to let Russ cook. If you got Russ, you need to let Russ beat Russ. I
There were some
understand.
moments though where Russ didn't really want to cook. Like really early in the game, he steps up in the pocket and it looks like he's going to run. And I went, "Oh no." And at the last second he throws the ball and I went,
Mm-hmm.
"Yes."
Yeah.
Like that, but that was him. That wasn't,
Right.
the coach putting restrictions or the play putting restrictions on him. So it's almost like he is like in his mind, he's like, this is who I am now. And we
Well,
saw
yeah.
we saw this last year as well. And he is far less of a dangerous player when he plays like that because here's why to me. I would love to hear your thoughts. When Russ plays in the pocket, I think he's fine. He
Mm-hmm.
may not be uh Aaron Rodgers, let's say, but
Mm-hmm.
I think he's still a good player. But when he is moving around, he is a great player. And so to limit the movement, I understand that side of it. You don't want to get the guy hurt. You want to you believe in your offense that if we stick with these things, the offense can go. We don't have to worry about broken plays saving us X, Y, and Z. But it's almost like Russ feels committed to it so much that he didn't really want to take advantage of the opportunities he had because I know he could feel Bosa. Like I know
Yeah.
he could feel those guys coming, and he was really, really adamant on okay, how many passes did Melvin Gordon catch tonight?
Yeah.
Like everything was in the flats, dump off, dump off, dump off, check down, check down. And I was like, I kind of like playing against this version of
Yeah.
Russ. He doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah. I agree that I remember, I mean, this is an old reference. Um, I remember when Donovan McNabb tried tried to do that, and tried to prove the league wrong, that he was more than just an athlete. He was going to be a pocket passer.
Yeah.
And again, he was okay. He was fine playing that way, but you'd much rather face that guy than the guy who was the wild card that you
Yeah.
didn't know what was going to happen. And I think Russ is one of those guys. If you tell me that you don't want to have him actually rushing the ball, that's fine. If you don't want to do that, but I think putting a leash on him and not allowing him to, if the play breaks down, to go make a play, or for him to feel like the ball is better out of his hands than in it. I, like you say, I, as an opponent, I'm glad you feel that way. Please do. Please dump it off to running back X rather than
Mm-hmm.
keep it yourself. Because if I can figure out how to defense that.
Yeah.
What's always been hard with Russ, and I say it every time, it's like a broken record, is when you defense it perfectly. You've got everything covered just the way you want it. And then this guy slides out and gets 15. You just can't account for that. It breaks you down. You know, I can't imagine that it doesn't affect you emotionally as a player when you know that, man, we could do everything right and this dude could still break us off. But if he doesn't want to do that, then that's That's a bonus for us.
Yeah. If you were to guess, you may have already looked at this number. What do you think Seattle's yards per play was in this game?
I have not, but 6.
The 49ers defense held the Denver Broncos to 261 total yards and 3.7 yards per play.
Mm,
How does a team lose
mm,
when you give up 3.7 yards per play? They had 70 plays, like you said. You said that they had 70 plays to the Niners 52. 261 yards, Niners had 267, and 3.7 yards per play. Niners had 5.1. At one point in the second quarter, the Niners were upwards of 7 yards per play, and they had only scored 7 points. And that was like, I just knew, you just knew that kind of stuff was going to haunt you. Like, even in our chat, when the score was 7-5, I was like, the script writers have this as, you know, long field goal to win the game 8-7. It didn't exactly happen that way,
mm-hmm.
but it was leaning that way. Like, it was getting close, and they scored the touchdown. So it was 11-10 or whatever the score was. They missed the 2-point conversion, but this team, the defense has gone out 3 weeks in a row, and I know the first game was a little sloppy, especially with the penalties. But man, to come out of these 3 games with a 1-2 record, it's brutal. Now, I think the flip side, if you're looking at this a little bit more optimistically, you look at this and go, okay, the defense is pretty much the apex of what we thought it could be, and the offense is struggling, and maybe they do need to pick it up a little bit. So at some point, the offense improves, and if this defense can stay at this elite level, then maybe you do have something closer to what we had last year. Where they can definitely get on some runs and beat some good teams. I mean, look, they went into Green Bay and beat Green Bay in a game that was kind of like this, right? And that was
Mm-hmm.
to the Packers' detriment. The game was kind of ugly and boring like this, and it was a special teams touchdown. That was the difference. So if this defense continues to play football like this, the Niners are going to be in ball games no matter how many C- Garoppolo performances we get. I think the question for me is, and not to make this about offense again, but we're establishing that the defense is playing stellar. If this offense is dictated by the running game, and we don't trust Jeff Wilson to run, I think he ran 13 times today. I'll find that number here in a second. He was 12 for 75, and one of those was a 38-yard run very early in the game. So if I can do the quick math, the rest of his game was 11 for 40-ish some odd yards. So not terrible. Like, he was still okay. But Debo was 5 for 6. And I thought Debo was going to get hurt in this game.
Yeah, they were really, you could tell they were really keying on him. The defense was definitely, they were rallying to Debo. And as they said, when he went out, one of the things you love about him is how tough he runs, but that, leaves him exposed. It leaves him exposed to taking, big shots. So I don't know how sustainable that is, having him, same thing they talked about with Trey, having him, if I'm running Debo, I want him out on the edges. I really don't want him doing too much inside running. It's just because it's just, in there, it's, that's big boy football. Not to say that Debo isn't built to play big boy football, because he clearly is. But when he's, so important, you want to limit the amount. He's just within the course of business, he's going to take his fair share of shots. So I just think you need to put him, if he's not already, on a pitch count to make sure that he's not taking, that he's taking as few of those as you can get away with. And again, hopefully Elijah Mitchell will come back and be able to give us something because he's shown that when he's healthy, he you know he's a player. He can make
He's got that burst once he hits the hole that Jeff Wilson doesn't have.
yeah, he really
Jeff Wilson
does.
will get yards because the hole is there and because he's
Yeah,
such a tough runner, but he doesn't have the speed like Mitchell once he does hit that hole to break it off. Like he could have, Mitchell probably breaks that first play off tonight that Wilson had the 38-yarder. It's very possible Mitchell
he
takes
goes
that
to the
one to the end
house.
zone. Yeah.
Yeah, so that we have to hope for that, and we have to, I yeah, I just the offense, if we, you're not supposed to be losing games when you're giving up, an average of 12 points a game.
Yeah.
Though from every level, every places that I've coached at, in high school, Pop Warner, if you give up 11 points, if you give up 12 points, you're supposed to win that game. The offense is not doing their job if you're losing those games.
Well,
It's just unexcusable.
if you're Ayuk, how frustrated are you? Because like in the first quarter, it looks like this dude's going for 7 and 100.
Yeah.
And he ends up with 3 for 39. He does get the score, which was awesome. But man, like I can't imagine that, he just got bottled up. I don't know if the plays weren't really they weren't developed. Maybe it was the idea was getting Kittle mixed in more. Debo did have his best game receiving so far this year tonight. But man, I would have kept that with that hot hand. Ayuk looked like he was going to have a breakout game, and they just did not get the football to him for the rest of the game.
It's going to be interesting to go back and look at the all 22, because as I've made the argument, because I went back and just looked at random games last year, and I don't see that they're, almost every route combination that the 49ers run, there's a deep option there. I mean, so I I don't know. I can't imagine that Jimmy's being told, well, you can't if if Kittle is open down the seam or Ayuk is open on the post, don't throw that. I mean, can that be the case? Did these routes are off limits?
So, according to ESPN's count, Debo had 8 targets. He caught 5 of them, and Ayuk had 8 targets, and he caught 3 of them. I know one of those was a near interception that I can remember. I'm trying to think of the other one. The other one was the cross that was open on 3rd down, and Jimmy threw it like a yard and a half short. I remember that one, but I don't remember the other 3 targets as to why. But I mean, maybe he was there and he just did not get the ball. But
Yeah.
okay, last thing we talked about a little bit, but I think this is kind of like our biggest fear come to roost here with the offensive line. Even running the ball, like it looked like they had a hard time running the ball, but they still averaged 4.5 yards per carry in this game. They just went away from running in the second half because they weren't as successful. Big chunk of that, like I said, comes on that 38-yard run by
Yeah.
Wilson. But I'm looking at the so there's the Jimmy fumble, which I don't. Could you tell if that was the center's issue or if that was Jimmy pulling away too quickly?
The ball hit him in the hands.
Yeah, that's what I saw too.
Yeah. The ball hit
So
him in the hands. It's just like Jimmy didn't squeeze it.
yeah, so and they were getting after it. Denver was getting after it. They saw blood in that second half, and they were taking advantage of this all of a sudden kind of patched up line. Like we knew Burford, the rookie, he struggled more today than he has so far this season. McGlinchey's gonna McGlinchey, like he's he can be good and he can have games like this. He's just so inconsistent. But man, when you take the big guy out there, the guy that you pay so much money, and he hurts his foot. He hurt his. Remember, he hurt the foot last year at the end of the season too.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing on a bad ankle. But that just the going from one of the best left tackles in the game to his backup was such a tremendous drop off. It was almost, I couldn't even believe how poorly Moore played in there, and it just like they just saw blood, and they just were targeting it every time.
And I also want to mention that Mike Purcell was eating Brindle's lunch. There were several plays where he just trucked him right back into Jimmy's lap, which is interesting since he's a former 49er. But Brindle has struggled. I never thought I would say these words, but boy, it'd be nice when Daniel Brunskill is an option again. Man, because he has struggled. He really has struggled. This is really the first game that the guards have had really, because Banks had a pretty good first two games, and Burford was really good in game one. But it's again, just like with any rookies, it's gonna, or I know Banks is technically not a rookie, but this is his first extended playing time.
I mean, Banks was a rookie, like Trey was a rookie, right?
Yeah. It's gonna be, you're gonna have your ups and downs, and then Brindle, I just don't know if he's very good. So I mean, apparently he's a smart guy, gets all the checks and stuff right. But if he's just getting manhandled, that's a problem. So and I think as I said earlier, Trent, and you just reiterated, when Trent's not in there, everything else just gets magnified. It's just, I got one question before we move on, and I know it's getting close to wrap up time, but I mean, how much longer before we acknowledge that Hufanga is just good?
Yeah, he looked awesome.
I mean, I know we talked about it last week that we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and for some team to, get him isolated and picked on him. But we're in week 3, and he just continues to kind of just ball out, making big hits and big plays, tackles for losses, and whatnot. I think I'm about a week or two away from just he's good.
Yeah, no, he fits. Like, he's such a great fit into what they do. All right, so think about your MVP here for a second. I'm going to push forward a couple comments, and I'll read them to the people listening on the podcast, because I want to celebrate this person who is checking in with us. None other than Rick Feinberg, who back in the day when our group was actually a page, Rick was one of the admins. He had come to me and said, "Hey, do you need some help with this?" I was like, "Yeah, would love you to post." And so then Rick became, the guy who would post a lot of the stuff on the page. And I'm glad to see that he's still with us. He's checks in with us here and there. And he says, "I've had enough of the Jimmy G apologists, team scapegoating Trey for the Bears loss. What do you say tonight? Love the fire." The apologists are going to be there, and Jimmy is giving them fodder based on what his excuse was. But what else was his excuse going to be? He's not going to, he, of course, he expects to play better. He wants to play better. He believes he can play better. I know Rod thinks that may be a tall task to ask of him, but love Rick being in here. Rick also noted that why didn't they put more emphasis on improving the offensive line, and it's bewildering to him. They did clear up some cap space with Trent Williams all of a sudden using magic. So I don't know what they're going to use that cap space for. Probably for somebody's upcoming extension, whether it's Bosa. I know they just signed Greenlaw to an extension. So all right, one last one from Shelvin. Broncos defense isn't a pushover. Surtain can cover. Yeah, they were really good. And like I said, they go up against what is essentially the 49ers offense in practice every day.
And
And
that
that
can't be understated.
yeah, and that what's so interesting about that is somebody asked Kyle in a press conference, and I loved his answer. They were like, lots more teams using your style of offense is it a little bit of a nod to you? And he's like, no, I hate it because now there's more teams to practice against it, and we're not surprising anybody with this stuff anymore. And so it makes me wonder, like, I don't know adjustments or not, but there's got to be wrinkles upon wrinkles upon wrinkles of things that they do. And I imagine for someone like him, who's just such a play caller and play creator, he's probably up to the task, but I don't know what they can do. Like, if there's other games like this against Denver where these other teams are just ready for what they do and they can't scheme the running game open like they have in the past, and they can't scheme guys open in the yeah, I'm sure that that's still happening. Guys are getting open. Jimmy's just got to hit them. But I wonder how he adjusts throughout the season to be ahead of that curve, because it looks like there are going to be some defenses catching up to him.
Well, I know I had mentioned in the group that to hear him, when people say call it defending himself, but when saw what I call an explanation of what happened with Trey and how he was running the offense with Trey, him acknowledging guys like Lamar and Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts made me feel good as a 49er fan for as long as he's here. It lets me know that he sees where this league is going,
Yeah.
and that the move to get Trey Lance, whether it is successful or not, then what you do is you just go get another one of those guys. But the understanding is that you need one of those guys in today's game. And to hear him say those names out loud lets me know that he understands.
Mm-hmm.
And that to what you were just saying, I mean, it's got to be frustrating for him to have come into the season with this body of work that he could use using Trey's skill set that he now has to, set aside until next year, because in that body of playbook were the answers to all these questions. I mean, it's not like he didn't have them. He just now can't use them
Yeah.
because, so I trust in him to be able to go back to the lab and figure out a way to maximize Jimmy. And then it just comes down to Jimmy being able to, at the end of the day, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to make plays for us to go where we want to go. And if he can, we can be really good. We had that happen. I harken back to the past. We had that happen. Alex Smith goes around the edge for 30 yards against the Saints. I mean, he, for all that he had been through here, when the chips were down in that particular high leverage moment, Alex was able to make a play. Jimmy needs that. Jimmy needs that type of moment. Jimmy
Yeah.
needs a Alex moment. He needs to be able to step up when we need him in a situation like tonight, where we need to get these yards to get in field goal range or to score a touchdown. Jimmy's got to make a play. I mean, it can't just be I'm gonna hot potato it to Debo. I'm gonna hot potato it to Kittle. We're gonna need Jimmy to actually step back, hit his back foot, and make some throws, and because obviously he's not going to run it anywhere. So but he's going to
Now,
have to.
now I remember one of the targets to Debo, not to Debo, to Ayuk was down the right sideline, and he overthrew him,
Yeah.
and he
Mm-hmm.
was open, but
Mm-hmm.
the thing, a lot of these deep balls that Jimmy throws tend to be out of bounds. Like even if he did hit the guy in stride, the ball would be out of bounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of them. But okay, so let's talk about player of the game for you.
Debo. Debo is my default. It seems like every week for me, it's either Debo or Nick.
Yeah, yeah. I got two. One of them is kind of funny. My player of the game is money making Mitch, man. 51.7 yards per punt. 3 downed within the in the 20-yard line. 74-yard punt was his long. Now, the punter should never be the MVP because if
That's the
he is, then
problem.
your team didn't play well. So my real actual player of the game is it was gonna be Mosley, but I think I'm leaning Dre Greenlaw because he led the team in tackles, total tackles. Um, he's very active, had 5 solo tackles, 10 total tackles. And he was all over the field making plays on a defense that was all over the field and making plays tonight. So
Yeah, I
that's how I
think
was
you're.
going to go.
I think you're right. It does need to be a defensive player with the way they played. So I agree with that. Couple names I want to mention before we get out of here on the defensive side.
Hmm.
Debo played pretty well.
Yeah,
He looked really good. It was interesting that he got to start tonight.
yeah,
Um, and then what about the rookie, Drake Jackson?
yeah.
And
Drizzy,
yeah, he got his first sack. So
that was a
congratulations to
nice
him
move
on that.
too.
Yeah, uh, you know, they've been talking him up. They say he's gonna be a player. So it was nice to see him show on film today. So that was
Womack punched a ball out that Gordon got back, but he seems to be able to have a nose for the ball himself, which is really cool to see.
yeah.
But yeah, the defense is at zero fault for tonight's game. Like they played as good of a game as I could have ever wished for them to play against a Russell Wilson led offense.
And they certainly played well enough to win.
All
For
right,
sure.
Monday night next week, ESPN, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, the old Fox crew. This is an old NFC game for them too. Niners and Rams. I know the Rams got boat raced in the first game of the season against Buffalo, and since then, they let me pull up the right thing here.
Man, they should have lost last week too.
Yeah, since then, they have picked up a couple of wins here. They're 2-1, though. This is the most interesting thing. They're a -9 in point differential
Mm-hmm.
because of that Buffalo game. But I think if you're a Rams fan, you're probably pretty frustrated with this team because they are the defending Super Bowl champions, and you expect them to be playing a little bit better. But they let the Falcons creep back in yesterday, and then they had the game not yesterday, last week, and then they had the game against Arizona this week or just today. So what are you thinking? Like, I don't know. It is at home, so you have that. I think on a Monday night, especially, Levi's will be rocking. My favorite games to go to at Levi's are Sunday night or Monday night games because it's just tremendous. It looks incredible. A night game at Levi's just looks absolutely incredible. But yeah, I think the Rams are. They are in need of what I think that they would consider to be a breakout game, but there are holes with that football team, and the Niners have I think the Niners should win this game, with the exception of I just don't know, what we can rely on offensively. Like, defensively, like I'm very confident in their ability to play the Rams very well. Like, you're not going to stop Cooper Kupp or anything, but the Rams can't really run the ball. Stafford is not. Stafford's never really killed the 49ers for one. They've always handled him fairly well. So I don't know. I'm pretty confident, but I just don't know what we're getting out of the offense.
Here's the thing. I've watched the Rams. I watched the end of that Falcon that the game last week, and I watched a good bit of the game today. The Rams aren't good. I mean, they are in they're constructed the same way they were last year in that they're extremely top heavy. They pay like 7 or 8 guys like 50% of their cap. So so Donald's good, and you got Cup that's good, and you got Ramsey that's good, but they've got a lot of you know just kind of mediocre guys out there.
Yeah.
They just, I don't want to overreact because they are the world champions, but I just don't think they're ready. They're not a very good football team. I think talent wise, right now, after what I've seen, trying not to overreact after 3 weeks, even though we're 1-2, I
Yeah.
think we're the best team in our division.
I
I
agree.
think we should beat the Rams this week. Like you say, now, if we start drilling down, I don't know how we're going to do it offensively
Yeah.
because,
Especially
Donald, yeah,
with
Donald's a problem.
Williams. Who knows
Yeah.
what's up with Trent still. I don't think I've seen anything as far as an update is concerned with him. Um, we just know it's the ankle, and that's a big dude, so he's carrying a lot on that
Yeah.
ankle. But yeah, I agree with you. If this is the way that my outlook for the rest of this season is going to be B plus Jimmy. We can beat almost anybody. C minus Jimmy. We can lose to almost anybody just because the defense can play so well. But if we can't score, then we can't score. So, I think if we get a B plus version of Jimmy, and some of this is going to be up to Kyle. I know Kyle is taking some of the responsibility of the second half, which he always does when they play a very conservative game plan, especially in the second half. And this is the same joke that we always have with Kyle. The worst thing for the 49ers is to get a lead because he changes the game. He
Hmm.
changes his game plan. And I wonder how Kyle reacts to what he saw tonight, because he had to be pretty embarrassed
Yeah.
on how the offense performed. So, whatever trickery or whatever creativity, I would expect him to dial it up, especially on Monday night. Like, this is why I expected the Niners to win this game, is because they usually play well in prime time.
Yep.
Like, Kyle kind of knows, like, okay, like, here's an opportunity, to show off here, and let's show off some creativity, and let's make some big plays. And at some point, he was just like, nope, let's just try and keep the football and not give it away. And then they give it away
Mhm.
3 times. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm with you. I think they should win the game. I'm gonna not necessarily make a prediction because I want to wait and see what's up with Trent Williams, and also, you know, what is the word with Jimmy and Kyle and the running game? Because if they're not confident in what they're doing, and if Jimmy's gonna, well, maybe I'm not in the best shape or whatever, like that is what it is. But if they're not kind of confident in what they're doing, then I'm a little worried because, like you said, Aaron Donald is just going to disrupt. He can disrupt a full game by himself. So
I see Shelvin's comment on the O line in '99. This is going to be the first game, that I think we really feel the impact of Alex Mack being gone, because he was very stout. I mean, they always double team
yeah,
Aaron Donald, but Mack was very, very stout in those double teams, in those combo blocks with the guards, and being in Donald's face and being able to give, to show force there. And Brendel has not shown to be that kind of player. So it's going to be interesting next week to see if he can be the game wrecker versus us, because especially in our win streak versus them, we pretty much handled him.
yeah.
And then in the NFC Championship game, he kind of took over. But the O line was beat to hell by then.
Trent was hurt in that game, right?
Oh yeah, he freely admits now that he had no business out there.
Yeah.
Um, but he wasn't not gonna play. Somebody needed to tell him,
Yeah,
you're not gonna play.
yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, and then Cooper Cup is a monster. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what we look like against them the first time this year.
All right. Well, that is it for our third episode of our recap, our live recap of 49ers football. And we'll be back next Monday. I'm going to try very hard to get my Giants Thompson to Clark podcast partner Brad Evans to jump on with us after next week. His schedule might be a little iffy on a Monday night game, but we'll try because he's a Rams fan, and he and I have a little bit of a fun thing going on the baseball podcast whenever the Niners and the Rams play each other. So I'll see if he can jump on with us and give the Rams perspective a little bit.
That'd be
But
awesome.
otherwise, yeah, man, we're 3 in here out of 17 without excluding playoffs, and it's been a lot of fun. And I love, I don't profess to be the most knowledgeable X's and O's fan of football, but I do enjoy the research, and I do enjoy the learning, and I do enjoy talking to somebody and then learning from that as well. So this has been a lot of fun,
Yeah,
and I look
I'm
forward to
enjoying
keep
it.
doing it.
Yep.
All right,
Thank
man.
you. All right. Thanks, guys, for chiming in.
Yeah, everybody who's watching, Rick and Shelvin and Robert Ramos, and there was a new person who was in here who I'd never seen before, whose name is Ishant. Appreciate you as well. So yeah, so Rod and I will be back next week after the Monday night game, 49ers and Rams. So for Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.